Jones. He's still got Mackay, still got Mackay, still got Mackay, and Mackay goals.
Gibbons talk about selling candy and kicking a beauty.
What about this from ball inside 50? Control from nowhere. Wasting no time, Jack Newnes. Set shot. He strikes it beautifully. He's got it. The Blues win it. Jack Newnes after the siren has won the game for Carlton. That is unbelievable.
Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian Brownie. I'm joined as always by my good mate, Lockie Lydiard, and the Carlton Football Club finally and officially have a new coach in Michael Voss. Lockie, what were your, initial thoughts when it was finally announced?
Yeah, well, I suppose the media has made it appear to be a long and drawn-out saga, but it's not even the grand final yet. So I'm pretty pleased that it's happened at this time, though. Lots of time to prepare for the upcoming trade period. But, yeah, initially I was pretty excited, and I think as the hours have gone by since the announcement, I've got more and more excited just thinking about it. How about you?
I agree. I think that as soon as it was announced, it was kind of just like relief rather than anything else. Whoever was going to be the coach at that stage, I was just excited to have something. And then I was keen to hear the interview, the press conference, see what he has to say. And I suppose throughout the day, that the more content that came around, even though probably I'm a little bit more skeptical today than I was yesterday. And I think a lot of people still are, and maybe people aren't as on board, which I understand that, because we've had so many coaches over the past 20 years. It makes sense that people are a little bit apprehensive, going, well, I'm not going to jump 100% in straight away because we've been here before.
For sure.
But I think as soon as something like this gets announced, you can't help but just get excited, get up and about that we finally got a coach and it's Michael Voss, and you start watching highlights of him as a player and trying to read into every little thing, and you can't help but get a little bit of optimism straight away. We covered a few things on Voss the other night during our live stream on YouTube. But look, we're going to go back over a couple of that. I'm going a bit more in-depth in this episode. And so I've got to ask the question I believe I asked you the other night, but was Voss on sort of the top list of your candidates that were seemingly in the running? You had sort of Kingsley, Gene Siracusa was another one. Was Voss on the top of your candidates? Did you have much an opinion going in before it was announced?
Well, that's the funny thing. I think part of me warming even more to him after the announcement was kind of the realization of who was out there to get, and the fact that there wasn't a candidate who, for me, seemed like the perfect selection. Even if you're talking about Ross and Clarko, there were still bits of hesitance with those guys. And I suppose the positives that Voss has over them are really nice and will be a nice difference. So, as I mentioned the other night, he probably was the top of that list who were rumoured to be on that short list over Kingsley and Gia. I was going pretty hard on the Ross the Boss train a month ago before he pulled out, but now I think all the positive traits about Voss and the negative things that people mention, like his coaching tenure at Brisbane, I think are outweighed by a lot of the positives. So, yeah. What about you?
He wasn't at the top of my list. I probably, after I guess Ross Lyon was out of the running, out of the contention, that was sort of where I ended with mainly like the more experienced type, that it seemed like that's what we were wanting. Sayers came out and said, we want experience, we want the most experience, the best coach possible. And it seemed to make so much sense. We were both clearly on the Ross line, bandwagon. And then with Clarko, you're going, well, just knowing what he is and bringing that into your club. I think both of us said we almost need someone that can come in and just fix this club, come in straight away, command it, change the culture, have the balls to tell everyone, this is my way, we're going to do it, we're going to change this from the ground up. And we sort of thought that the perfect person was Ross Lyon. And I guess as far as the experience, there probably wasn't anyone else that ticked that box. And I guess Voss is probably that next one that has had some experience. And initially, my thinking, the more I was looking at a Kingsley and a GR and seeing their experience, and that I guess the criticism on Voss that I have is the fact that he has really only coached at Brisbane, obviously, and then he went to Port and really only coached at that one place, where I feel like other people have bounced around at different places, gone into quite a plethora of different roles. And it was almost that, do you go someone who's tried this before because you want that extra experience, or do you want someone that you think can be that next best coach that has never done it before? And I was almost, and I could be completely wrong with this, like Voss could be here and be the best coach we've ever had, but I kind of like that excitement of potentially getting that unknown, that complete unknown. But as soon as you announce Voss and you start looking into other things, you know, I'm still pretty happy. I wasn't completely at that stage where I've gone, oh, I don't want Voss at all. I was never like that. It just was I maybe preferred some other candidates, I guess, slightly on that one.
Oh, I think that's so valid. And I think a positive kind of spin on that for me in terms of being there, like some people were worried about Clarkson, for instance, that, oh, you know, he's gone through all this glory. Like, is he still hungry for the success? And so I guess that is a positive for me, where it's like Vossi, like he is trying to redeem himself. And like he's gotten so much criticism in the last day of people bringing up, and you heard all the journalists in the press conference, all they want to know is like, why are you different to when you were coaching at the Lions? So he's got something to prove. And yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me when I reflected on it more after the announcement was about him being in arguably, you could argue, the best team of the 21st century. And he wasn't just a part of that team, he was the captain on field. So if we're trying to get people into the club that understand what success looks like and what high performance, everyone, I'm putting in quotes, everybody talks about what high performance looks like. It's pretty hard to go past. It is. But a genuine Brownlow medalist gun, I mean, even if you just don't think about his coaching, he at least will be able to look at a situation and say, well, that's not what success looks like in a club.
And it's pretty easy for players to, I guess, want to listen to him. You hear all the time, it's something we have, how many times since we started this podcast is it, who's the leaders in this football club? Even if it's a coach, like who could you actually look to and as soon as they speak to you, actually believe what they're saying because they've been there and done it? Where are the winners? Well, he's your winner. He's won more than you really can. 3 in a row as captain. He's done it all. So it's pretty hard for you to be a player and just not listen to him. He's clearly got some aura about him. I guess like on that sort of point that I was making a bit before, where we were sort of both looking for maybe that bit more experienced guy that can, I guess, change the culture. You alluded to there that he's obviously won a lot. Do you think that he has those qualities that we saw in a Ross that can come in and just completely fix things?
I mean, I do. I think something that we talk about a lot is not necessarily thinking that the head coach is the savior and the one that's going to implement everything and the one that is in charge of fixing things. But yeah, I mean, I think the values and the signs are there that he can be the one leading the charge to turn all of this around. The more I think about the little elements as well, like I love the Luke Power connection is awesome. I would be remiss not to mention the childhood bagger in him. And when he spoke about that, I couldn't get the grin off my face because that's basically my only criteria for anyone to come into the club, that I'll have anyone as long as they were a bagger when they were younger. And yeah, so I do think he has those qualities. And like I said, I think it's a massive thing that he's been a part of Port Adelaide, who have had some good seasons. And, gee, they did a job on us this year a couple of times. And so that's kind of another element that I think that some people have spoken about, where he has been a part of the group that absolutely dismantled us. He knows where those weaknesses are, which I think is a positive thing too.
No, I really love that thought. That makes a lot of sense. If you know how to destroy Carlton on field, then clearly you know what made us tick. And you could almost argue that coaching team of Port and what they did to us, they knew us better than we knew ourselves. And so he obviously knows those weaknesses. He knows what's to fix. So I like that. And yeah, obviously the fact that he was a boyhood bagger, we've talked, I guess, extensively about whether it's the players, whoever it is at the club. Do they, love this club as much as us fans? Do they bleed for the jumper? Do they understand what we stand for as fans in a football club? And we obviously have the ambition to be back to where we were, being the powerhouse club. And it was always that question of, do we care about the past enough at this football club? Are the people there looking enough and really embracing the history? And you hear the stories of him, with the Kenny Hunter and the Dominator.
Yeah.
that just grab you and you go, this guy, I think, understands this football club, which is a big thing, and understands, I guess, what it means from a fan perspective at this football club, which is just another added layer that if you're watching that, listening to him talk and not getting excited about having that prospect, that I don't know what you're doing, because I was just, as like you, just so happy hearing him speak about loving the football club. It's a guy that you want leading the charge. And I guess like another point on something you mentioned earlier for like a Clarkson, where we're potentially like, having to beg him to be the coach and whatnot. I like that whoever we're getting out of this process with a Kingsley or a Voss, they wanted to coach us. We weren't having to try to persuade them, have to pay them X amount of money. It was they wanted to coach this football club. They were interviewing to try and get it. And, whether you want to believe that we'd already given him the job before he flew to Victoria or not, I like to think maybe this is just my ignorance, but I'd love to, picture Voss going, I don't know if I have this job, but I'm going to fly there and I may have to do 14 days quarantine back in South Australia. I might not get the job, but I want this that bad that I'm willing to risk, a few weeks of my discomfort, because that's exactly what I want to go after. And that excites me just to hear how passionate he is about, I guess, getting this all done. So another question that I do have for you is, I guess, to be a little bit negative on it, the panel around this whole process that's been, the word process has been said almost too much, and I've said it too much already. Trust the process. How do you think the panel actually went? Because there were some issues with, obviously, Kane Little being appointed on there. We then sack him midway through it. We bring in Cook for the last sort of 3 days. He has his somewhat perspective in there. Be a bit weird, like how aligned are they going to be? What can he do for 3 days after they've maybe already close to deciding? And then you guys get Parko in there, who, one of the best coaches we've ever had, one of the best coaches of the game. But I guess the criticism has been he's been out of the game for a few years. So is he the best person? What have you made of, I guess, the makeup, the size of it, and their job in the end?
Yeah, interesting question. It's interesting because I feel like they did a reasonably good job of keeping things under wraps, but yet there was still plenty of leaks and rumors about who was on the short list and that kind of thing. I mean, I can't say anything negative about it. I suppose a lot of what I'm trying to do at the moment is have this optimism in the changes that are happening, new people at the helm. And I mean, one thing I need to say about Luke Sayers is I am extremely impressed with basically everything that he's done since being brought into the top job. I don't think he's really put a foot wrong in my eyes. And so with that, I'm kind of just putting my faith in this panel and with the new leaders that everything that's happening is fresh and nothing feels the same to me. Like it's crazy the number of people in different positions already. And so because of that, I'm just putting this faith in it. I mean, I don't have anything, necessarily about this committee, but I'm at least happy that there haven't been a stupid amount of leaks about what has happened because so much of it is just these rumors from these journos.
I think it's so easy to, I guess, look at the way things have happened and just assume that everything that's gone on is the old Carlton. It's Carlton that's been for the past 20 years. We've spoken about it before. Sayers obviously being at the club throughout a lot of, I guess, failure tenures and things like that. And it's so easy to just go, it's the negative in all of this. Let's find it, and you go to the panel and you look at every little part that may or may not have gone right or wrong and just go on the negative side of it because that's how things have been. I personally, as a fan, just don't think that that's the way that you should look at things. I'm all for being critical and going, okay, should we have had this person on there and give arguments for and against? I'm all for questioning whatnot, but I think you have to have that sense of optimism, that sense of hope that, well, they've made some changes. They've made 4 changes on the board. We've got a new president that the way he's communicated with the fans, how many videos have we had from him, from Diesel, even, unfortunately, John Elliott passes away, which is awful news. Absolutely did so much for this football club, loved Carlton so much, but you at least get a video of him on the socials about it. And this is just something we haven't had. I saw someone tweet saying, we've had more videos from our president in about a week than we had from our last one.
Seriously.
His whole tenure. And it's just this change in communication, the way we're doing things. And I guess we're going to start to talk about the press conference itself, but just the vibe at the press conference. I don't think I've ever seen three people there from Carlton having a laugh, having a giggle, seeming so connected. There was this lovely chemistry for people that, Voss even said, I've barely even seen Brian Cook. I've only spent a couple of days with him. Sayers has only spent a couple of days with him. And already it seems like there's this cohesion. It's you have to look at it positively, surely. Obviously, time will tell. But, I mean, get a bit of hope there, please. Talking about that press conference, was there anything that did stick out to you, whether it was a quote? What was it in that, press conference that you really liked or disliked?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging because so much of it is words, and I know people are sick of taking words at face value, and it's all about the results and that kind of thing. And I agree, but at least, like you said, the vibe was so completely different to anything that we've seen. I felt that he came across extremely genuine, Vossy, and I loved hearing what he had to say. I even more enjoyed the discussion with later on in the day. I thought he spoke incredibly well in that interview, and a lot of his thoughts were exciting. Nothing especially stuck out except for just the fact that, it's just so nice to have that kind of positivity and to see it on Vossy's face, how genuinely excited he is. There's no denying that for me.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree again. I think we're pretty aligned on this appointment, whether we were 100%, yes, this is the clear-cut guy or not. I think if you listen to the press conference, and as you said, it's only words, but they're good words, and it seemed to make a lot of sense. And just the vibe of the press conference, it's the first time I've seen us look so united as a club going forward, and it was so nice to hear almost a different take, I thought, on the coaching position itself. They talked almost a lot about leadership and growing leaders at the football club. That was a big thing Brian Cook is all about. If we can build leaders everywhere and everyone can learn from each other and everyone can grow together. And these are just things we never hear. It always seems like we've just got to get better. We need to win more games. It never seems like this. I don't know what the right word is to say, but the way that we actually seem to be building things just feels like the right way to do it. And I've honestly believed that the way that the coaching is going, particularly head coaching, obviously you have to have that tactical now, so you have to know what you're doing and make incredible system changes with the way that the football is. But that leadership and being able to manage everyone, I think, is almost more important and becoming more important the more that these line coaches are getting more responsibility. You almost see it with, Dom Pike is credited as the assistant at Sydney that's changed their ball movement. You've got Kingsley at Richmond that helps that. Uze's been the one with Melbourne, and it's him and Choco that is the reason that Melbourne are in a grand final. No one's really saying it's Goodwin that's doing all of this. So I think that sort of has highlighted a little bit for me that when they were talking about the good attributes of Voss and why they wanted him and the things that he's been working on, it's this leadership, it's this developing relationships with his players and getting the best out of them. And these are the things that we've needed. We've struggled with development, and knowing that he took on all these roles at Port, and the players seem to say that he is the one that they credit. Ollie Wines was saying it's been such a big deal for him in being able to get him to go to another level. That's exactly what you want to hear. And how many times have we gone, okay, like we talk about SPS as a player that looks like he's going, someone we've struggled to develop, Paddy Dow, all these names. You're hoping that he's got these characteristics, that he's the one that can fix our issues. And maybe that's why the panel was so steadfast in going, he's our guy, because you look at the problems that we actually have and his attributes match that. So those were, I guess, the things that really stuck out to me. I guess a lot is spoken about Voss's time at Brisbane and it didn't go great. And the fact that he's just spent pretty much the whole time since trying to learn, trying to fix his deficiencies. He's said that as much, that he clearly had places he needs to work on, and that's what he spent his time doing. So I just don't think he can see too much negative at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at some other questions that I've got here for you, because it's such a weird time. It feels so weird to finally have a coach. It almost seems as if, when was it going to happen? And I guess that's probably a question I have for you, maybe talking about those assistants that I've maybe put quite a lot We've spent a lot of time searching for a coach. We said we're going to go down this process. Do you think that there's a potential that we've almost lost too much time on our coaching search, that we're not going to be able to get all these assistants? I guess a lot of either re-signed with their clubs or moved elsewhere. Do you think we've hampered ourselves by going through such a long, extensive process, or do you think that we'll be okay?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. I mean, I feel like you can almost you can't answer that until we see what we end up with, and then we can look back at those results. I'm going to have to put my optimism hat on again and say that I don't think so. And we believe that the head coach is the most important role, but we think that the assistant coaches are very close to that amount of importance, to the effect they have on the team, and that the head coach is more the public communicator, the one that has to answer to the media and the kind of at the head of bringing everyone together. So I hope that that's not the case. I'm holding out hope on Scarlett. And again, I'm just going to put my faith in the team to be able to, bring in the right guys. But I just think that right now we've got such a good base, with especially with him in power. And I'm going to be hopeful that we haven't missed out. But are there still names out there for you that you're thinking either we've missed our chance or that it's still a possibility?
It's the hardest one. It really is. I don't know too much, I guess, about the availability of all the assistants when they're out of contract. It was probably knowing that a few had maybe gone to other clubs. I think Enright ended up going to Essendon. Tapping, I think he may have also gone. No, the Enright went to St Kilda. I don't know. Yeah, but Corey Enright, Tapping, Robert Harvey was one. All these sort of players all these coaches that are big names in the industry then, and they were definitely in demand from a few clubs. So I think we probably have missed out on a few. Who knows if Voss even wanted them in the first place? So I think it has potentially put us behind the 8 ball. But I mean, the head coach was the biggest one that we needed to fill. So I'm almost of that opinion that if that's what it took this long process to make sure we got that right. I'm rather we did that than, I guess, rush it just to try and get some good assistants. And I think you can always build on assistants. Who knows? Maybe someone becomes available next year that Voss really likes. You bring him in, and I think the way that we're just trying to build the foundations, it's getting the right people in, and this was just always going to be the biggest one. So I think hopefully, fingers crossed that we've got this one right. So I guess my last question maybe on that process is, I guess, are you happy with the fact that we went through this long process? We sort of touched on it a little bit, but I guess when we talked about us really wanting a Ross Lyon, are you happy that we went through the longer process and got a Voss? Or would you have preferred us to, I guess, appoint Lyon without this process because it seemed like he was pretty keen at that stage? Would you have much of an opinion on that?
I do, because I struggle to take all of those things as fact, the things that have been reported about Ross, where to me it seems like the only thing that was confirmed verbatim was that Ross had spoken to Carlton and he said that chats were going well. Whatever that means, I don't think we're really ever going to know the true reason why he just suddenly was out of the race, even though, like you said, the rumours are that he wasn't happy with the process or just wanted us to have the faith. If that's true, then I think, kind of like you spoke about with Vossi being so keen, I mean, we don't want someone that isn't willing to go through the process. If that's true, then that's ridiculous on his part for me. Like, this is a job. You go through the process. If you don't want it, then we don't want you, is my take. But I'm not stating that as being fact, because there's been some wild things thrown out there. I don't necessarily think it's true, but if it is, then absolutely go through the process and give the guy who's most passionate the role that fits what we want to do.
And I think that word has almost been thrown out so much that I don't think we all even understand exactly what that means, because it could be one interview. It could be him actually presenting to the club, which is what I guess that final stage was between Kingsley and Voss, was them presenting in person. And I think a guy like Ross Lyon, he's not going to have to go through the extensive, I don't know how many interviews that compared to the assistant coach, the untried. You're going to really vet those guys out, because they don't have that plethora of work behind them. So I think the processes are going to be different for each person. The fact that he couldn't back himself in for whatever reason and say that, yeah, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to go through this process and win. Like you, I want the person that wants to be there will jump through any hoop possible because they want to coach this football club and they think they can change things. That's really what I think. And I guess the last thing I want to ask on talking about anything that isn't Michael Voss, I suppose, on this one is obviously I think we have to touch on Clarko as well. Did you have much of an issue with the fact that we were still begging seemingly for Clarko, even as late as like last weekend? It was said that Brian Cook, he did say that he did chat to Clarko. We don't know to what extent. Seemed like we may have had another a crack at him. I guess while we're still running a process, still chatting to everyone else, do you have an issue with that? And I guess do you also have an issue with us continually begging for Clarko, which I think we sort of maybe have already alluded to that answer in the first place?
Oh, this language, like begging. It's just such media terminology in the way that they love to talk about Carlton. And we never know what those conversations were. I don't personally see an issue with Cook reaching out. I only saw the tiniest snippet of him talking on, I think it was Footy Classified, because I do my best to avoid that. But he seemed very much like, yeah, no worries that he reached out, like somebody new in the club, like obviously in a big position. Why not just reach out and just to check in to see if he wanted to be a part of the process, if that's what really happened. I mean, yeah, like I'm trying to get away from the begging narrative, because you just never know what the conversations were. Maybe, maybe he's like, oh, I'm pretty sure that I'm not keen, so no, I'm not ready to be part of the process. Carlton land arguably the best administrator in the game, and they go, well, what's the harm in at least seeing if he wants to be a part of this race too? For me, I'm just going to try and get away from the begging because I haven't yet seen a photo of Luke Sayers on his knees.
That's fair enough. Look, I just think that potentially the fact that we just asked so many times is maybe the issue I have with, I guess, the begging narrative. Is you ask maybe once at the start and you go, hey, we're looking for a new coach. Is this all right? Like, would you be interested? And then I think you leave it. And then maybe when you get a Brian Cook in, you change it. It just seemed like potentially from, I guess, you can only take what, I guess, the media say, which is always the hardest thing, that we had like potentially 3 minimum attempts. I think that's probably where I have the issue of, look, if he's not keen, like we said, just stop. Who cares? If he's not begging us to be the coach, then I don't want to have to try and lure someone in with cash or have to be like, oh, look, we've dangled the new CEO. Hey, we got Brian Cook. Does that change your mind? I want a Voss or Kingsley there that are just going to be like, I don't care who the CEO is. I see promise with this list. I think I can change things. I want to be the key man. So. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think it's fine for us to reach out. I think we maybe did it a little bit too much, but I think I'm pretty happy in the end with what we've got there. So
yeah, well, yeah, I'll just finish off by saying once I see some proof about what these actual attempts were, and because some people are wanting to say that there was 7 attempts, I don't even know what an attempt is. If people think that's an email or a phone call or knocking on his door, like it's just all just such rumor heavy. No basis. All that's confirmed is that we reached out and then Brian reached out. So if someone wants to give some proof, then I still agree with the underlying statement that we want the people that are super keen, and that's Vossy.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess with Vossy and the press conference, they once again asked, because what Sayers said in the coaching search at the start, that we have that expectation to play finals. It came out again. Are you a little bit worried, I suppose, with the pressure and the expectation to come straight in with I guess like a Voss and say finals? Because earlier on, both of us said if you get, I guess, a Lyon or a Clarkson in, then it's definitely a lot easier for them to come in, know what to do, and leapfrog teams and start to easily get into finals. Bringing in a Voss, there might be, who knows, might be a little bit more work to do. Do you think that I guess, yeah, are you worried with the pressure and the expectations of finals next year? And do you think that that's realistic for a coach to actually be able to get that done in the first year?
I definitely think it's realistic. I still think it's probable that we will. I'm optimistic, but that's where I sit with it. I think for me, there's probably two narratives that could happen, which is they say that we're aiming for finals, and people say, oh, okay, like pressure's on, or they say we're not expecting to make finals, but we'd love it. And then the narrative is, oh, well, then what's this bloody rebuild been for? You're not making progress. Oh, you're so close. How are you not setting your expectations high? Why aren't you striving for glory? Is, I guess, the two narratives I can see. And I much prefer the first one.
Yeah. I guess to that point, I think there is a way you answer that question without having to put finals in that. You can say, they can ask the question, is finals the expectation for next year? And you say, we are always striving to win every single game of football and get the ultimate success. These are the things that we are really looking to improve at the moment. And then you maybe haven't said definitively, we are making finals next year. And I think that can help, I guess, in media spin is go out there and just play it a little bit smarter. And maybe that is, I guess, Sayers' growth coming into this new role where I guess you just us two have no issue with him being like, yeah, we want to play finals, because why are we even playing the game of football if we're not attempting to do it this long after the rebuild?
Exactly.
And in any season, you want to win the grand final. That's why you play football. But I think from the media's perspective, knowing how much they shit on this football club at any chance they can get, even if it's not valid, I think sometimes you maybe just need to be a little bit smarter. But at least I did like in this press conference, he actually explained it a little bit more. And he said, well, look, we're not going to cap it. We're not going to cap expectations, but we have to start setting some sort of standards here. And that's what it's all about. If we said that, we're here to finish 13th, 14th, what's the point? But also he said, we're not going to hurt ourselves over not making finals if we don't get there. As long as XXX next are all happening, then we're still in a good direction. But we have to have some sort of KPI that we're aiming for. Otherwise, maybe that's the issue. We haven't had these KPIs. It's been, we're just looking to improve. Let's not worry about finals yet. It seems like that's the way we've built things, and that hasn't worked. So I think it's fine to do that, and I kind of agree with you. I think that we have that list where if we do get couple of things right, if we can get this defensive system going, we've got one of the best defenders in the league, one of the best midfielders, one of the best forwards, plus a Paddy Cripps if we can get back to his best. We've got Liam Jones down there. We've got so much talent on this list. Yeah. It's surely not that hard to a few things go right, we stay healthy, and we play finals footy next year.
Yeah, and they're telling the truth by saying that the expectation is to play finals, and we love when they're open and honest about the things that they can be. And like, if the thing that they're worried about is, we don't want to say that we're going to make finals because, the media is going to rip us to shreds. Like, if they're worried about the media, then I just don't think that that's a good way of going about things. Like, I hope that this new wave of people is about, let's get this fucking close knit and stop these leaks and turn around the whole media narrative. And I think worrying about those things is not the way to do it.
I really like that point. That's a really good way of thinking about it and going, look, they can write whatever they want. They can put the pressure on, like, hey, we don't make the 8 next year. Things maybe didn't go amazingly, and they're going, sack Voss because Clarko's available and he said he wants to coach next year, and that'll be the media narrative. And we just go, who cares? You can write whatever story and say and make up something and say that Carlton's looking at him when we're not, and we just sit there and go, who cares? Because we know what we're doing. And I think that's, you've nailed it there. I'm pretty happy with that. Was there anything else, I guess, you wanted to cover on Vossy coming to us? Anything you're happy with, unhappy with? Or did you want to launch into some of the fan questions?
I think we can launch into some fan questions. I'm keen.
Beautiful. Do you have any for me, Lockie? I know you're just getting a few up here now, because honestly, I didn't expect this many people to come in so quickly for us. I sort of sent out the tweet not that long ago, and I've gone, gee, if we get 1 or 2 questions here, I'll be stoked. But it was nice to see you guys have finally reached out for us. I absolutely love to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got some good ones in here. I'll start off with this one, which is about the new coaching team, not really Voss, but I love this question because we love talking specifics. It's from JS. Who are the players that are underperforming or against expectations that we expect to get growth from with this new coaching team? Are there some names of guys where you're thinking new guys around them in the leadership department, where are you going to see the growth?
It's the hardest question to answer. It's whenever get a new coach in, he's going to come in and he might have new favourites that we didn't see. Maybe there's guys that weren't getting a game that he immediately goes, what are they doing? The way I want to play, this player is the perfect and ideal one. And I'm really hoping the guys that we see this from are the Paddy Dows, the Lockie O'Briens, those that have been the maligned youth, because this seems like his bread and butter. He's developing these younger players. When Port Adelaide brought in Dersma, Butters and Rosie, he was very hands-on with helping their development straight away. And honestly, they were the three that everyone was talking about from that year as, wow, Port Adelaide have got three of these kids. We've got Walsh and he's been incredible, but they've got three of them in this draft. And how amazing is that? And the way that I think those three have progressed, knowing that that's something that Voss can do, that excites me for that kind of talent that have, I wouldn't say gone backwards, but it's like they're at this teetering stage where they haven't really 100% proven it. They haven't nailed down their best 22 spots, but we still see that promise. But it could easily go the other way where they're delisted in a couple of years and it hasn't gone well for them. So I think it's those sort of players that I'm hopefully going to see a big uptick with this just new, fresh ideas. Is there anyone that I guess really stands out for you?
Yeah, I'll take the other side of it and say I think, my hope is he spoke in that interview with Christian about one of his favourite parts of coaching is when he gets to help players get to aha moments. And I love aha moments. And I think that we've got some players on our list who, like, the names I'm thinking are like McGovern, Zach Williams, and maybe Jack Martin. I'll put those three there, where I'm hoping that maybe there's something in him changing the game plan, changing the culture, where he'll be able to get some of those aha moments, and maybe we'll see those guys get to what we were expecting when they came into the club. Yeah, that's my hope.
And I loved that there was one quote, I don't know it exactly, but they asked him the question, like, you've got all this talent, you've got the Wiederings, you've got Cripper, Walsh, Mackay, Curnow, and like, how excited are you to work with that? And he's gone, they're great players, but that, like, individual talent can win you games, and 100%. Obviously that's good, but it's about the team, and we need everyone to play their role. We need everyone to step up. I love that just immediately he's come in and gone, it's good, but that's not going to win you premierships. That's not what it's about. And he didn't even take 2 seconds to say, beautiful. Look at all this talent I've got. It's going to be amazing. He just immediately went, no, it's about the team. Stop worrying about individuals. The team success is the way that we're going to do it. And I just love that take from him.
Completely agree. We've got a good question here from Dom in the Den. So they've asked, what are the success metrics? Finals, but what else? What if we don't make finals? And I'll lead into that question also by saying that something I really liked about the interviews he's done is he's not pretending that he has all the answers right now. And he's also he's not dishing out all his ideas. And these things like the metrics and the goals are what this pre-season and off-season is all about. Honestly, if he came in and said exactly what those metrics were yesterday, I'd think, one, maybe keep your lips a bit tighter on that, and two, how can you know exactly what he's coming into? He hadn't even met all of the players before he was announced. So, but what do you think about that? Because like you said, if we don't make finals, for instance, what are the things that he's wanting to see or we're wanting to see?
Like, I don't want to leave. I'm very wary of saying this sentence and people taking it the wrong way and people not thinking that I want high expectations for this football club. Like, finals is where we need to be aiming. And I don't want to say the cop out of, if we're improving in certain things, that's fine. But there are clear issues. We were quite far off finals this season. Even though we're only a couple of games out, I think the consistency of our performances and the deficiencies that we have, we are a fair way off. I think it can turn very quickly, but there's clearly so many deficiencies and issues, like the defensive game plan and the way it looks like our effort is on the field, particularly in tackling and moving the ball in transition. There's been so many different things that we've highlighted over the past 2 years since we started this podcast of these are the problems. This is it. So for me, it's just fixing all of these and seeing signs that it is working. I can understand if we don't make finals next year, but as long as you're looking at it going, I understand where we're going. I understand what the game plan is. Every single person is playing at the best they can, but it maybe just isn't 100% clicking. And I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head exactly what those metrics are, but being able to make sure that we don't get those blowout performances, we're not conceding massive strings of goals in a row, we're winning the contested ball. All those little things that we've seen go against us, I want to see start going our way or at least drawing level in them. And if we see that, that will hopefully become wins and become finals. But if we're doing all that, you can't complain too much, I believe. Is that how you sort of see things?
Yeah. I there's nothing I have to add to that. I completely agree because I think I'm just hoping that we're going to look like a completely different team. And I just don't see how we won't, because I think we're going to see some players in different positions with all these fresh eyes. We're going to see a completely different game plan. So like you said, I think there's a way where we can have it's so hard to use the word successful season, but a season that we're at least pleased with, where we see progress and don't necessarily make the finals. So, yeah, I like it. This is a great question from Rob. And I would have loved if, in that Carlton interview, he was asked this question, but what were his thoughts on the Blues conceding 19 straight against Port? And like we said before, I just think it's so fascinating to have someone that was in the coach's box that planned that and that made that happen. It's good to have him on our team.
Yeah, look, Andy Marr asked him about it.
Oh, he did?
He played a pretty straight bat to it, which was good. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what he said, but he wasn't like, it was this wrong. He was just sort of like, because Andy Marr sort of phrased it a little bit more as in the way of, would you use this as motivation for the boys and I guess what other teams think about Carlton and use all of that? And he sort of immediately said, what's the point of talking about it? Because that's the past. I wasn't here. Things are going to change. Things are going to be a lot different. I want to go into it fresh. I want to go in not having to look back last year and going, that guy maybe didn't lay a good tackle in it. He wasn't putting in his effort. He wants a clean slate with everyone and evaluate from there. He wants to try and do things that way, which I kind of liked the answer. I think that to some degree he would obviously have things where he's gone, okay, they didn't do this, and he can believe he can fix it. And I'd love to know exactly what that is. But I think almost the way that he helped coach a team that kicked 19 goals in a row against us, and he went, I want to coach that team. Yeah. That is almost more for me, the more exciting part of that, where he saw how garbage we were and he's gone, that's the team I want to coach. I believe I can fix those players, knowing him thinking that it isn't a ridiculously hard fix, because you wouldn't probably take that job if you've gone, these players, they're no good. They don't want to fight for it. They're soft. You wouldn't want to take that on. So it's just positives going, he must see something that obviously we don't, because he's got such a good footy mind.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right, because I think, like I said before, about how he's proving himself, trying to prove himself now after the first coaching fail, if you want to call it that, he probably knows, and it's probably true, that if this somehow does go up in flames and is a train wreck and he exits badly, he won't be a head coach again. So he at least has to have the faith. Yeah, he just at least has to have the faith that he can be that positive influence. So that's a really good point. Look, with this question, we love making predictions. So we kind of asked this before, but I want to know from you. Anthony, the Lone Wolf Ant, says Voss's leadership really shows with the way he speaks, which I agree. And they've said, which player do you reckon will excel under Voss? So maybe you can look at it in terms of improvement perspective, or just like who do you think is that Voss is going to have the most impact on? I'm excited.
There's one player that immediately is who I think of, and I don't know if, I think he's obviously got to make a massive jump and be a great player for us, but there's just something about Voss taking him under his wing that I just go, from what we hoped we could get, I can almost just see a clear path to him being a superstar, and that's Liam Stocker. I don't know if that's who you were thinking as well, but you just see Voss take this young player that's currently playing in like a back pocket. I can see him just going, you're going to be my gun midfielder in a couple of years, and just thinking about him being a young Voss. Like, people were showing that highlight in the grand final where Voss just gets absolutely taken out. 2 seconds later, he picks up the ball, kicks goal, and you're going, I can see Liam Stocker doing that exact same thing, that tough nut that's just going to get it done. That's the player that I'm super, super excited for him coaching. And, the fact that we've seen him play a role that maybe we don't want him to play, and knowing you're getting fresh eyes where he may immediately go, he's my midfielder. It is exciting. Do you have any other players, or was he one that you were really highlighting?
That was my number one, absolutely. But I think, in reply to Anthony's tweet, Julian has said number 9. And I think there's something in that. I think there's something in a number 9 resurgence this year. I think on a down year where clearly, again, not at full health, and he's admitted that, I think there's something in that where, Voss is going to be able to bring something out in him, whether it's changing the way that he goes about it or whether it's changing his mindset. I think we're going to see a big Rick year.
That gets me excited. Probably another couple, just to add to that, is kind of guys you mentioned before, like a Zach Williams or a Jack Martin, guys that they've shown flair in stages, but they've never really played consistent at that level. The big talk has been standards. Diesel was talking about that. Sayers has said it. And it looks like that's going to be obviously something that Vossi is all about, being that little bit of a harder-edged coach as well, all about these relationships. It's hopefully these players that he's just going to get that extra level out of them. And I'm just so excited to see what can happen. It's all optimism for me because, it could all go wrong, but I'm going to sit here and go, it could all go right. I've seen nothing to show me that it could go wrong for Michael Voss, because he hasn't done anything so far. So it's all positives for me at this stage. And I think if you're a supporter and you can't even get a little bit optimistic about things, I just don't relate to, unfortunately.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think we've probably got that'll probably wrap it up for the questions. I've got this one more comment here from Lawrence in reply to our tweet, which I think is a good read. Happy with Voss, but very important we get the right assistants around him.
Yep.
Experienced assistants that have been at top clubs. This will be the challenge, make or break now. So kind of echoes what we talked about earlier, that now that's the next part of this process. And like you said, it has been, God, how many drink every time we said process during this pod. But, free agency is right around the corner. So you'd think that some of these announcements are going to come soon. But it's just exciting times. I don't know how you can't be excited by at least all this change.
Yes. And you mentioned like assistants, and something Voss said, he talked about, I think they asked him about taking a Nigel Lappin, and I think he said that he wasn't looking to get him at this stage. So I guess we'll see if that changes, because he was heavily linked as soon as Voss got the job. But he mentioned the word diversity in the actual coaching panel, and just trying to get people that have different ideas, different skill sets. He doesn't just want the same people that are just going to be sort of like yes men to him. That's exactly right. We need people to come in with specific skill sets, basically, and try and get it all done. I guess like one last thing that I see a question here from Michael Saravolo, and he talks about, how much does he have a say, do you think, on guys like an O'Brien, like an SPS? Do you have much of a thought on that? Because SPS has obviously requested a trade. Yeah. And most likely he will go, but do you think that, I guess, Voss will have a big say on these kind of guys that are either fringe leaving or staying?
That's a really, really good question. Yeah, it's been interesting to see some people posing that thought about him kind of going to SPS and trying to convince him to stay. Don't know. Haven't made my mind up on that. My initial thought is going back to that idea that we want the guys who are committed and see their future at the club and are excited about being there. We've heard the rumours for a while about SPS wanting to go back home. And I wasn't, as I've said on this show, I wasn't necessarily that upset when it became official that he wanted to trade. So, I mean, this might not be a popular take, but I'm not sure that I would like Voss to be completely, begging for SPS to stay. I mean, with Lob, I mean, I really hope they're putting a contract in front of Lob because I still think that he's got a lot of potential. But yeah, I think he would have, he's going to have the ability to be able to swing some of these players' thoughts, but I don't know if I necessarily want it to with SPS. Are you still holding out hope that he pulls on a Carlton jumper next year? Because I don't think it's possible.
I can't see it happening. I feel like once you've said I want out, I don't think there's many times I've ever seen a player request a trade and him not leave for the sake that the club has swayed his opinion. It has nothing to do with us not being able to get a trade done or anything. It's him just being like, oh no, I actually want to stay now. So I doubt he stays. It'll be interesting because I think honestly the list management probably have a bit more of a say always. And even maybe through this process, maybe that was some of the things they were talking about. Voss was going, out of the guys who are out of contract, I probably like him, this guy. And it's also hard because he hasn't had a training session with these guys. There's only so much intel, I suppose, he can have from the outside, not being in the building, talking to these guys all the time. So I'm not too sure how much of a say he will have. I think to a degree, he might have come in and been like, hey, do not get rid of O'Brien because he's perfect for what I'm trying to do. There's a world that has happened where there's players that are out of contract that it's a 50-50 call on and he's gone straight away, I'm keeping him because he has that skill set for me. And it's just going to be exciting. We've got so much content planned over the next, few weeks leading up to the trade period and then obviously through the trade period. So it's going to be super exciting. I guess the last thing I probably wanted to touch on, there was just a few quotes from Vossy that I really liked that I'd like to at least bring out. And if you have thoughts on them, I'd love to hear them. So one was him coming in and saying, it's so important to be able to try and take that dive to get to know them, talking about the players, because it's where you get to learn what the right way is to go about it, whether they need a pat on the back or whether they need to kick up the bum. With some, really, it's that direct feedback. If you invest in the person, I feel they'll always respond to you because they know you're coming from the right place. And, I mean, these are the qualities that he's worked on that he says is his now bread and butter. Just hearing little things like that, even though it might be, obvious to hear, I think it's just so nice to know, if he knows how to deal with people properly, and hearing these things, you hopefully can get that bit of belief that he will get the best out of these guys. I don't know if you have much of it.
Well, I mean, it sounds like someone that doesn't think that a one-size-fits-all approach is what he needs. It sounds like he's aware that everyone's going to need to be coached differently and getting to know them is the way to do that. So, I mean, I love that.
And maybe it's a little bit different to the way Teague did things. It seemed as though he did a spray and then apparently some people didn't like it and maybe just stopped doing the sprays instead of trying to manage people differently. And then another one was the one thing that our group will feel is trusted. With that trust comes clear accountability as well to follow through on the things they say they will do. If I was guilty of anything at Brisbane, I had really high expectations and I was hard to impress. I didn't give acknowledgement. If I fast forward 8 years, I give greater attention to celebrating those moments. The players' environment has changed. What they're exposed to growing up and the level of complexity in their lives is far different to what I ever experienced. I have a deeper understanding of them and some of the challenges they face as a player. I really tried to bridge that gap, let them self-discover and make mistakes and be creative and not get it 100% right. And then coach them basically on those moments, which sort of adds to that even more. Him going I know things are not going to go right the whole time. We've got to learn and we've got to grow together, and it just feels like a leader. It feels like someone that can change things. We've so heavily been we just need someone who can come in and take this kind of young group and really change the standards here and build. And I think he has that hard edge, but I think he understands that that's not the way that you do it 100% of the time. I just love everything I'm hearing. I just soak in all the Vossy content at this stage.
That's an incredible quote. And it just feels to me like him and the other guys that have come in. I heard Kuda talking the other day about how he feels like the biggest thing is the culture being so different to how it was. You know, the players love saying things like this, but back in our glory days, I mean, these are just the kind of things that make you feel like we're heading in the right direction now.
Yeah. And I guess I'll end on this one, which is kind of similar again, but he's gone, the reason why this job was so appealing was there has to be an acceptance of change. You get to be able to come in here, come in and help start that and shift the energy to something new and different, which is just so cool to hear. Like, it sounds like that's what we're doing. Brian Cook has said it. Sayers has said it. They've said the players are so keen as well. They can't wait to do something new. And he's even said here, Vossy's gone, it'll be a little uncomfortable, and that's not just around the coaching, but importantly, it's about how we connect and unite as a club. If I've learned anything from Brian Cook in the first few days, it's people are at the starting point of building your organisation. And if he's learning these things in a couple of days, I can't imagine what these three that look so united can actually do. And hopefully they can finally turn this football club around. Hopefully we can look back at this in a couple of years and go, this was the massive turning point. And just fingers crossed at this stage. Is there anything else, Lockie, that you wanted to add before we head off?
Yeah, the last thing from me, I suppose, is just that I have been really happy to see that the majority of stuff in the Carlton community that I've seen has been really positive towards him, and kind of this thought about let's all unite and get behind him. And I really believe that, because they've done what we wanted and they went through a process, and now they've picked who they think is the man. And kind of like we said, we thought if they're going to go through the process and it's the people that we want involved in that process, then we're going to get behind whoever they choose.
Yep.
And now it's just all about let's just swing this narrative and unite behind him.
You said that perfectly. It is all about us. We have to back him in now. He's the guy. And I think it's that, for the last thing I guess I really wanted to say is just that, you know, things are going to take a little bit of time. Someone new coming in, you can't just, we lose round one and it's, another bad coach, here we go again. You have to let things play out. You see so much that success isn't linear. You look at Melbourne, all of a sudden, overnight, they're playing in a grand final after a pretty average year last year. So you have to give a little bit of patience, and time will tell whether this is a good appointment, whether Voss has been able to implement everything. And I just urge us to, although we definitely need to demand, certain standards, there needs to be just a little bit of patience. And look, that's pretty much going to wrap this episode up. Happy to have Michael Voss in. Very excited to see what he's going to do with this football club, and just touching base with what this podcast, Navy Blue Corner, has in store. We've got some list analysis episodes coming up. We're going to do a bit of a trade build-up as well, where me and Lockie are going to come into an episode and both give reasoning. We're going to put our list manager hats on and say, these are the deals that are going to happen. This is what we're going to do if we're Nick Austin, and sort of absolutely dissect what we've brought to the table, see who's better as well. So we'll put those out once they're up, and you guys can vote and see who's the better list manager. It's all exciting stuff happening at this stage. So look out on socials for everything at Navy Blue Corner, and keep your eye out for some podcasts, because there's going to be a lot. But that is going to wrap this episode up. Michael Voss is now the coach of Carlton. See you guys next time.